Good morning. We are live on YouTube, but we want to be live on Facebook as well. This is the Falcons Podcast on Wednesday morning, 9:07 a.m. Eastern Time. And welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. We are live on Wednesday morning. We appreciate everybody for joining us. It is game week, game day eve, if you happen to be interested in, fantasy football, which is almost everybody on the planet. As who's playing tomorrow? Chiefs and Lions?
Chiefs-Lions. Yep.
Chiefs and Lions. So we're almost there. 4 more days until Falcons football. Some of the things we want to get into today, we're going to get into the depth chart. We probably won't spend a whole lot of time on that, but they did release an updated depth chart that looks more realistic than the first one that they released. We'll talk some Panthers games, some Carolina Panthers, and we'll go through the schedule a little bit, and we may touch on some personnel concerns and questions on both sides, and any questions that you might have, get them in the chat. There are lots of folks in here already, and that's why we do this live, because we want to hear from you. We want to do the Q&A and answer your questions, and we have a good time doing this. So first off, Nick, how are you doing this morning?
I am doing pretty well. Getting excited to starting a backpacking trip tomorrow in the North Olympics, so that'll be good. Heading out to the Seven Lakes Basin. So it's a glaciated little plateau in just southwest of Lake Crescent out there. So that'll be a lot of fun, a lot of good fishing, and a lot of black bears. So excited. I went to this place 3 years ago when I first moved out to Washington, and it just poured on us the entire time. We did do some fishing, but we were soaked and cold. So heading back for a redemption tour, and it's one of the more sought after backpacking permits in Olympics. So excited to get out there.
Yeah, the bears might have hunkered down, but I don't think the fish minded so much that it was raining.
No.
But I don't know how the sunlight and cloud cover affects them too much, or with the rain, if they're hitting the top of the water, if that affects it. I really don't know. I don't know nothing about fishing.
I bring a spinner with a pack rod, typically not a fly fishing rod. I know a lot of people out here are the fly fisher types, but I'm mostly hitting the alpine lakes, and a lot of times with that, you have brush and scree behind you, so you can't get the back cast unless you're in the water. And I'm not hauling, gators, 20 miles through the back country to do that. So I bring a spinner, and they see it in the water.
All right. Well, speaking of some spinners, let's say hello to some folks that have joined the chat here this morning. Michael Ronquillo in nice and early says, good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast. Alan says, good morning, gentlemen. Appreciate you being here. John Harold Jr., good morning, Scott and Nick and Falcons family. That's all of y'all. Roderick Cook coming in from across the pond says, afternoon, everyone. To you as well. Gregory Smith coming in says, aloha, Scott and Nick. To you as well. Aloha also means goodbye. I think it's an awesome word. When you're passing somebody and you want to say hello, aloha, hi, bye. Dom Jaramillo coming in says, good morning, Nick and Scott, Dog Nation and Broncos country. So yeah, we got some of our Broncos fans in here. Nick and I do several different podcasts, including Broncos, including some NFL on Friday morning. Make sure you're joining us on Fridays at 9 a.m. as we take a look at the total landscape, which is very soon, now that we've started football in college, going to start talking a lot of draft. Michael Corietti says, good morning, boys. To you as well. Leon, it's good to see you, my man. Hope you're doing okay. Eric Mack, good to see you too as well. Charles West says, how you doing, Scott? Looking forward to Sunday because I'm a season ticket holder. Well, good for you. It should be I'm expecting a old school Atlanta Falcons crowd there. It should be a little bit more raucous than it's been the last couple of years, where the lower bowl is completely empty because it's nothing but corporate season ticket holders, and they couldn't unload their tickets anywhere. So it was empty or filled with fans from the other team. I don't know why they put the prices so damn high like that, because they sell them, I guess. One of the first things that Arthur Blank did when he bought the team was he lowered all the ticket prices because the Georgia Dome was empty. He put all the upper deck tickets were like $5, and they've been sold out since he's owned them. I grew up, Nick, this is going to sound crazy to other teams. I grew up, the Falcons were blacked out most Sundays. So you'd only get to watch half their games. You'd only get to watch the away games.
Crazy. I mean, how different the NFL has become in that time period, right? I mean, you can, even the Lions, right? God bless Lions fans, or Cardinals, you can get tickets out there, and it's such not a localized sport anymore. And you can speak to that with Atlanta, all the transient population there.
It's a transient town, yeah. And that in fantasy football, I think.
Exactly.
It's really changed things where everybody's interested in more people are interested in other games than I think any other sport
Yep.
in sports.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you can probably lump college football into that as well. Like, I don't give a hoot about Bama, but you bet your ass I'm going to sit down and watch Bama if they have a good matchup. So I think it's probably has to do with that. Also, just a limited number of games. And the season comes and goes like that. I mean, we're in it now. So I think that I'm excited for the Falcons. Congrats on being a season ticket holder. And hopefully we could probably calculate what year that Denver will be in Atlanta. But that would be a fun time to get out there.
I had season tickets in the late 90s. They were the 200 level, kind of back corner of the end zone, moving more towards the goal line. So good seats. And I just saw those. I just got an email for those again. Hey, these, they weren't overly expensive. They're a little more than, excuse me, $100 a seat, which isn't that bad. I'm like, hell, I ought to buy these for a freaking investment, even if I can't go to games yet. It won't be long before my kids are out of the house and I'll have Sundays open. So, but try and keep our Sundays. Our Sundays are pretty busy right now. Harry Marshall Wood says, morning, fellas, and any of the ladies that have joined us. Kevin, good morning. Kevin Fitzpatrick over on Facebook says, good morning, all. Possibly my last live viewing for a while, but I'll certainly watch the replays. Thanks for all you do. Okay, well, I hope things are all right. And hit the comment section. Come in and make sure, the YouTube comments are a little bit easier to follow, but I do try and keep up with the comments coming in on Facebook as well. So make sure you're saying, hey. Want to get into this just a little bit, and we'll say hello to some more folks that have started coming in. The Falcons depth chart, I like to say it's a little bit more realistic, but no big surprises in there. There were a couple of shots taken. They come out in 12 personnel. I'll laugh out loud. Yeah, well, they kind of did last year too. And if you look at the defense, they've got a 12-man first team defense too. So that's what they did. They come out in, I guess it would be, where do you put Cordero Patterson? If you have one running back and three receivers, then it's what personnel is that? I know 11 is pretty standard. What do you call
11.
it? Is that 3 wide receivers? What do you call an old-fashioned like I formation then?
That's 21.
Thank you. I didn't.
You don't say the number of the wide receivers. It's the running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, and that's
okay. I grew up with it's an I, it's a pro, it's 3 wide, it's 4 wide, and I didn't ever learn that. I've learned as I've gone along doing this that 12 is 2 tight ends. So
12 is 2 tight ends.
Starting to figure that out now. Run and shoot was 4 wide receivers, and we had names, not numbers.
That'd be 10.
Which is strange because I'm a numbers guy, so it makes sense. And Dom, there is one good SEC matchup this weekend. Dom says Texas versus Alabama. That should be a decent matchup to watch. No offense to Texas fans, this isn't about y'all, but I hope Alabama curb stomps y'all. I cannot stand Steve Sarkisian, and the sooner he's away from your program, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to follow. I don't know. I don't feel like there's a superpower in an obvious superpower in college football right now because all the big time programs are breaking in new quarterbacks, which makes them unknowns for now. So going to be a fun year. I'm calling my shot. This is definitely a long shot on that, but I got Penn State vibes right now. Their quarterback just is doing it for me. And I think they might have the top offensive tackle in the upcoming draft, the top edge rusher in the upcoming class, the top cornerback in the upcoming class, all at Penn State with, I think, the 2025 first overall pick at quarterback. That's a lot of talent.
I can say Georgia and Alabama and be right 90% of the time. So I'll just stay there.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty. We'll see what happens. Like
honestly, I don't know enough about the other teams. I watched more last week than I have in a while. So I'll learn a little bit of this. Before we get back to the depth chart, Rusty Moore says Brian Burns is in a contract holdout. Hopefully he does not get a new one before Sunday. And if he does it matter?
I mean, he's a vet and crafty and, skilled that, even if he's on a pitch count, if those pitches are at the right time, he can be pretty effective. And that does matter. I mean, looking at the Panthers depth chart, the edge rushers that they have behind him, I mean, Justin Houston's out there, but he's been older. Amari Barno, you remember Barno? He's the one who had the absolute freakish test numbers from Virginia Tech, but the tape was not there. And they also have Yetur Gross-Matos. So not having Brian Burns really does impact that room, even if he was on a pitch count. I think you having an ace.
And that's what I mean. Not
down guy.
I know he's good. I mean, if he signs by Friday, would he sign in time to still have an impact in this game? Don't get me wrong. I know it matters to the Panthers for the season. I just mean for this week. Would he be in good enough football shape to make a difference in this game? Probably, even if he's getting 20
Yeah.
snaps.
That's what I'm getting at. I mean, if it's a small pitch count, he's still talented enough that you put him in, third downs only, he's going to impact the game. But we'll see what happens there with him. He's a great player. There was the rumors also. What are the Panthers doing? You guys should be pretty excited about the questionable decisions that they did. Apparently, they were offered 2 years ago. They were offered 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns from the Los Angeles Rams, and now you're not going to pay him. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing here? I don't understand.
I don't know. I mean, he's on his 5th-year extension right now, which is $16 million. And you don't see normally people you don't see guys hold out over that typically.
It's the guaranteed. It's not the 16. It's the getting the big lump
guaranteed for your 5th-year extension.
But what would be the guarantee if he got a new contract?
I know it'd be 75 million.
Yep, exactly.
But I guess usually the holdout comes the next year when they try and tag him and don't want to pay him. It doesn't happen. This is a preemptive strike. Terry, good morning. He says, "What it do, Bird Gang?" Gabriel Rodriguez says, "Let's go." Philip Hogginson, good to see you. Appreciate you being here. No real surprises on the. As I'm looking at the depth chart again, they come out with a 12-man team. Cordero Patterson. I can't say that I've ever seen a J next to someone's name. He is the Joker, and actually, like on social media release, like I am the Joker, with his on his Twix page, which is kind of funny. And the thing is I think he's going to be an X for X out this week. I don't think he's going to play. I don't think he's going to play this week.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think he'll be held out. No need to rush him. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And unlike the Broncos who play the Raiders and then things can go downhill from there with the schedule, you got pretty overall easy schedule this year. So there's no reason to rush him. Maybe you use Bijan Robinson more in that J kind of role and work in Tyler Algier as well. So there's no reason to rush him. Get him healthy, get him out there.
I guess a question for me then, if you only have Algier and Robinson, do you flex someone up like Igwebuike from the practice squad possibly?
Yeah, definitely possible.
Be a third running back.
Yep, maybe a tight end as well. Just maybe lean more into the 12 personnel. We're gonna work it in, Scott. Now that we are talking about it, maybe you'd work in more held 12 personnel or even 13 personnel. We saw a jump up in 13 last season across the league. So maybe that's something you do with the Panthers. How they're set up, I think their secondary overall is pretty talented, but the outside of Derek Brown, I don't know about the ability to hold up with the run game over long term with the impact players there. So maybe you do that.
And again, saying 12 personnel, meaning 2 tight ends out there is, to me, it's a little bit of a misnomer. Kyle Pitts is a receiver. You can call him a tight end who's playing receiver. You can call him whatever you want to, but he's lining up in either slot or out wide, in the X, Y, he's lining up as a wide receiver, what we call slot receiver or wide receiver, 75% of the time. He's not lining up as a tight end. He's lining up as a receiver.
Yeah.
He lined up more times wide than he did in line with his hand in the ground at tight end. And frankly, that's where I want him. Kyle Pitts was drafted number 4 overall, not because of his blocking prowess. That is a promise. He needs to be a 1,200-yard, 10-touchdown weapon for this team to justify that draft ranking at tight end.
Yeah, without a doubt. I like to use pass catcher or weapon instead of receiver, just a little bit more of its own nomenclature. But that's just me, my own personal preference.
Well, I think intended receiver. That's what the play-by-play goals call them. Okay, the intended receiver on the play was Bijan Robinson. They didn't say the intended running back or the running back who they threw a pass to. He's the intended receiver. Yeah,
without a doubt. But coming back to this tight end conversation here, it's something that we've talked about on the show a lot with the team building and more philosophical stuff. And it's a trickle up from college, which is a trickle up from high school, and that's just kind of how it works with a lot of the talent in the NFL. But I think we're entering more of a positionless football era where guys are asked to do a lot of things. You're seeing it first on the offense and then the defense responds. But guys like, Travis Kelce, guys like Deebo Samuel, guys like Christian McCaffrey, you're trying to put the defense in personnel flux out there. So that way, when they go out there at the field, who do I cover them with? Because you're not going to be able to have a defender that can do everything. So if you're matching up before the snap, right? You don't know where they're going to line those guys up. So before the snap, you see Kyle Pitts out there. Are you putting a linebacker out there? Okay, now what happens if Kyle Pitts flexes outside? Are you following him with linebacker? Are you showing your hand that it's man coverage? Are you emptying the box with that? And doing all that stuff pre-snap, you can get so much information for the quarterback in the pre-snap process. So it's fun with that positionless football.
All right, positionless football. This just hit me a little bit. You've heard me talk about you'll historically the best athletes were always on defense, always. But you've also heard me talk about the change of how are some of these tight ends coming to be tight ends when they always used to be defensive ends, because it's no fun to play defense anymore. So now you're getting these 6'2", 210, 220-pound athletes. Guess what they used to be 10 years ago, Nick?
Linebackers and safeties.
Linebackers are big safeties. They were
Yeah.
defensive players. But now, because of the rule changes and everything, you're seeing more of these guys on offense. And a 6'2", 220-pound guy can do a lot of things on offense. And that's where the positionless football comes in as the game has changed more towards people. And that's the cycle I think we're in right now. You talk about a 6'6", 250-pound, 4'5", 4'4"-ish guy like Kyle Pitts. Now, he's still fairly unique, but they're out there. 100 times out of 100, 10 years ago, that guy's got his hand in the ground. He's playing defensive end / edge, outside linebacker. Now he's playing offense.
And we're seeing it right now with just, again, to add on to that, Brock Bowers is like 6'3", 235. I mean, from tight end standards, if you plug that into mock draftable, his weight is going to be in the 5th percentile, but you're lining him in H-back. You're playing like Kyle Juszczyk kind of role. You're lining him in the slot. He's Travis Kelce. They're using tight end jet sweeps, and he's beating linebackers outside. So it's really a chess match football we got going on right now. And if you're a good offensive coordinator and you can put the defense in flux with the personnel that you have out there where they show their hand and you got a matchup based on where you got guys lined up because they don't know where you're going to line up your dudes, it's such an advantage for the offense. So it's a lot of fun.
Two of my California kids, Juju Smith-Schuster. Oh, God, you should have seen him play defense. He was at Long Beach Poly, and he actually played corner, and I wanted him at linebacker, just an outside linebacker type. But again, why would I tell a kid that can play wide receiver to go play linebacker now? A wide receiver 4 is making as much as a starting linebacker. How about safety? Why would I say? Do you remember Marquise Lee? Marquise Lee, he went to USC. He was out in California when I was out there too. He was teammates with Robert Woods, who was a year behind him. That team was unbelievable.
Barkley?
No, that was a little farther south, down at Mater Dei. This was Sarah.
Oh, I was talking the college when they at USC.
But Marquise Lee plays wide receiver. My God, you should have seen him play defensive back. Oh my God, he was amazing.
There is money.
How do I tell these kids to go play wide receiver or go play safety when you're making a tenth of the money as a okay wide receiver? And
there
that's
is money to be
these
made.
Athletes are going.
Without a doubt. And there is money to be made at cornerback. There's a plethora of wide receivers, a lot of college coaches, some of the best cornerbacks coming out right now. They came in as a wide receiver and then they flipped them.
Well, that's where Adoree Jackson chose. And if you remember DeAnthony Thomas, the Mamba he went to Oregon. Oh, he's one of the best two-way players I ever saw. I was like, if I was his dad or his agent, I would have made him play corner because he was undersized. He was really light, but just cat quick and just a tremendous feel for the ball and hit about 2x his weight. I'm like, he should have been a corner. Jacqueline Galloway taking care of us this morning. Appreciate you coming in with a super sticker. Breaking the ice for us this morning as we are getting started on a Wednesday. So thank you so much for that, Jacqueline. Appreciate you supporting the show. The other thing on here, one that caught my attention, obviously, Bijan Robinson. Okay, everybody, get ready. I'm going to break some news for you. Are you ready? He's listed as RB1 instead of RB3. Oh my God. Yeah,
Shock.
No kidding. No kidding. And it doesn't matter if he's listed at RB3. He's still going to get the most touches on Sunday. Bold prediction here, Nick. Bijan Robinson leads the Falcons in touches on Sunday against the Panthers. True or false?
True.
I
mean, unless you're counting the quarterback, but that's not really a touch. But I'm
not counting. And I would count carries. I would count rushes. For Ritter. I mean, he might have 5 or 6 rushes. Tyler Algier, maybe that would probably be number 2. Tyler Algier probably gets 10 to 15 touches, I would think. And then Bijan probably has between 15 and 20, maybe a little bit more than that. And then you're spreading it around a little bit as well. So
Yeah.
the other thing that is on here that got my attention was Jeff Okudah listed at cornerback, the other starting cornerback opposite AJ Terrell. Now, that's not a big surprise in itself, but he hasn't been practicing for a while. He just came back this week, was working in a limited action. They feel encouraged that Okudah could be on the field against the Panthers. To me, Nick, I don't think it could just be, hey, he's been one. He is our one if he's there. I'm not moving this. But I think that's a pretty good sign. We could expect him to play on Sunday.
Yeah, I think you have a good shot of that. I am curious if he is out. He's listed mostly as boundary, where the Lions found a better home for him in slot, so they're going to try him again at boundary. I wonder what that looks like. If he is out, they got behind him listed, Mike Hughes, Trey Flowers. Would it be possible that you kick one of those nickels out? Because I think D. Alford and what we saw from Cam Phillips this year was even better. I know they're small, but the Panthers are kind of small as well. I mean, other than Mingo, not super overall, physically.
Speaking of jumbo athletes, 6'2", 6'3", 230 pounds. I mean, again, 10 years ago, that's a linebacker. You're going to see him carrying the ball out of the backfield and slip screens and stuff.
Weird, because last year was it was the smallest wide receiver class of all time. So the big guys, I think the only ones I can think of were Mingo and the guy who ended up going to Cleveland from Tennessee, Tillman, I think was his name.
TCU kid was a good size too.
Quentin Johnson. He was a good size too. Yeah, but I think it was the smallest height and weight wide receiver class in the history of the game.
Going back to the Smurfs, man.
Yeah.
Dave says this offense cannot be Bijan centric. You just heard me say 15 to 20 catches. Touches. Would you consider that centric? Because again, this is up to interpretation. I would figure 65 to 70 offensive plays. You're talking about 20%, 25 to 30% of the touches. I wouldn't consider that Bijan centric. Would you?
I think it depends on a lot of the window dressing as well. I mean, how much play action are you using? How much misdirection? I think if you're drafting a running back 7 overall and you have a quarterback who you still 8th overall, and you still are questionable about your quarterback and the investment that you made, it is going to be the running back you drafted centric. I mean, this is the most value you're ever going to get out of him these next 2 years. So lean into it. And I think it will be and should be Bijan centric. I know that today's NFL, it's a passing league, it's a quarterback league, but not everybody has that guy. And I don't think that you are ready to, let it rip. Like, kind of saw it again, personal anecdotes, you can slap me over the head if I'm doing it too much, but the Broncos last year, they tried to make it Russell Wilson centric, and he was playing, static drop back, not play action, 3-step drop, 5-step drop kind of stuff. And guess what? He stunk at that because it was a drop back quarterback centric offense. That's not where he succeeds. So you have an elite running back. I'm already ready to say that he's elite, even though, we haven't even seen him at the NFL yet. I'm going to say it. And you drafted him at a premium at a position that doesn't go that high. It should be and will be Bijan centric in the short term. Long term, different questions.
So what would you consider centric again? Because I think 20 touches is probably going to be right about where he's at. Would you consider that Bijan centric? He's leading the team, and he's leading the team in carries. I've said that since they drafted him. He will lead this team in touches every game that he's healthy. Does that mean he's the focal point, or is he just, that's pretty standard for a number one running back. This team has more than one number one running back.
I still think it's going to be more because of his usage in the pass game as well. I think you're going to be averaging closer to 25, and I would say that is centric considering how many running back by committees we have in today's NFL and just the passing orientation that we see. So I would say that's still Bijan centric. I think it's going to be matchup oriented as well. And the good thing is you don't really have these high volume pepper targets out there at the wide receivers. You have guys that are making plays down the field. So hopefully from an efficiency perspective, it's not like they have to be high volume. You can do your damage with, 6 targets and get it done. And it'll matter week by week, matchup by matchup.
I'd kind of like it to be high volume to Kyle Pitts. I'd like to see him getting the ball on slants and getting the ball quickly while he's still on the move, not necessarily little hooks and curls, but get him on the ball and let somebody try and drag him down. I mean, he's a unit, and then Drake, we'll see how they use Drake. But we've seen, like you're saying, some one-on-one, let's throw it long. And if we hit 1 out of 3 of those, well, we're
Chunk.
getting 60 yards.
Yep.
We'll take that type of production. Roderick asks, he says, won't Ritter run himself more? I think so, but more. Mariota ran a lot last year in this offense. I would think that Mariota, for like on an option route, might keep it 2 or 3 times a game just to keep the defense honest. And then he'll probably scramble rush 4 or 5 times a game and end up with, between 6 to 8 carries per game would sound about right to me, Nick.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'm curious how many designed runs you'll have with the quarterback. Yeah.
I'm thinking 3 or 4.
Yeah. Quarterback powers kind of stuff, the zone read stuff as well. I think that the biggest thing with Ritter and having somebody of his athleticism is that he can make a perfectly covered defensive play irrelevant because he can tuck it and run for 6 yards and a first down and keep the offense on track and on schedule. I mean, that's so key watching a lot of these teams. And once it's like 3rd and 8 compared to, 3rd and 2, that is a night and day difference for what you can do out there. So that's where I see the most value with his running coming in. Some of it will be keeping the defense honest, the edges honest, pulling that ball in from that zone read from time to time. If that edge rusher's crashing hard on Bijan, well, maybe you won't do that next time, and maybe that frees up Bijan a little more. But more so the end of the play stuff.
He's fast. Desmond Ritter's fast. That's a weapon they really haven't had since Vic. I mean, Matt Ryan was there for so long, I just can't remember. I mean, Mariota was a little bit, but he didn't scare you in the rushing game. Mariota could run, but he didn't in the passing game. So you're still stacked. So there wasn't really anywhere for him to go. Joe asks, what should we expect stat-wise from Ritter on Sunday? Let's go ahead and get into the Panthers game a little bit. Frank Reich dismissed last year in I think as Matt Ryan described last year, and a good part of it was with the Colts, as a shite show. Frank Reich was part of that, got caught up in that. Had something to do with it too. I'm not saying he's blameless. I thought it was a good hire for the Panthers. Come in and they drafted Bryce Young number 1 overall. What should we'll ask Ritter first. I think I'd probably like to see between 30 and 40 yards rushing, maybe a touchdown in there could be possible. If you're spreading everybody out down at the goal line, down in the red zone. But I'm thinking somewhere 15 to 17 of 25, 225 yards and a touchdown, maybe, Nick.
I think that's about right. I was going to say 18 for 24, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, where I think he'll be fine. I bet you there'll be 1 throw in there that he wishes he had back. So I'm going to predict an interception for that early start. But I think the run game is still going to be so efficient that it's not going to be a big deal. I'm curious to see what the heat map will look like from this game, the areas where they're targeting, and what the yards per attempt are, because I could see it being a lot of deep balls as well. But then when you have, Bijan out there, then maybe some like really short ones as well. So a big discrepancy between where that's going and the average.
The middle of the field might not be as well used, but it might be. And the folks that watch Alan, who was on our show 2 weeks ago for the Dolphins preseason game, he said they kind of nicknamed him Dump Off Desmond, which could be okay. You've got weapons in there, and Keith, I see we'll get to that one too. Actually, I'll get to it right now because he's asked us a couple of times about the Falcons' weapons, and the first time he asked, he was like, "Where would you rank them, the Falcons' offensive weapons?" I don't know the answer to that. I don't know everybody else's well enough, but I know if I'm looking at plug and play, take the quarterback out of it, like you're saying, and I can line up with Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Cordero Patterson, that's a 5 that is really, really, really good. Really good.
Yeah. I mean, the weaponry is really good out there, as you said. I still think that we need to see Kyle Pitts take that next step, without a doubt. I think that this team maybe would like a more pure, dominant inline tight end option as well, with how much they are trying to run.
These guys don't exist, man.
I mean, there's some of them in the league out there. I could run
Kittle.
through. No, I'm not even that level. I'm just talking about like an actual like extension of the offensive line. Like Kittle's elite.
Blocking. I thought you meant as a blocking guy. Okay, I got you. I'm sorry.
Like just to round out the overall weaponry there.
Yeah.
because right now, I mean, who is the Falcons'
It's
second
Jonnu
tight end?
Smith, who's not necessarily a dominant blocker.
Yeah. I'm looking for a pure Y type as well, just for the package. Like, I'm not saying it's going to make or break the team, but I think a dominant Y would be very helpful for them
Michael
as well.
Pruitt's not necessarily a dominant blocker either. John Fitzpatrick is as close as you're talking to something like that.
Yeah.
Who was the guy? Y'all help me out here. He was there last year. Was it Lee Smith was who I was thinking of?
Mhm.
Lee Smith, when they break up into individuals, he went with the linemen. It was funny.
Yep.
He didn't go with the tight ends. He went with the linemen. So another guy like that, I think, is what you're talking about. A Lee Smith, Nick.
Yeah, just somebody that can do a lot of that different stuff out there. It's obviously not the most important part of the game, but one of my favorites, most unheralded players at the tight end position, and I played tight end. It was my favorite. But somebody like a Mercedes Lewis, who's just an absolute unit and can be a turnaround, toss it to him, but really good, an extension of the offensive line. So something like that. But again, rounding out, and I love Mac Hollins as the number 2 for this team. Because he's somebody that doesn't have to be high volume to be super effective out there. But, there's in today's league, you can never have enough quality wide receivers. So maybe adding another 2 or 3 kind of guy out there, because it does feel like the talent drops. But when you're talking about Bijan Robinson, you're talking about Kyle Pitts, you're talking about Drake London, you got Joker out there, the J logo out there. I love that with Cordell Patterson. We're talking small potatoes here. There's far other things on this Falcons roster that will need reckoning and questions before we get to the weaponry this season. They'll be a top 7 unit of weapons.
H-Town Made checking in. He says, Texans fan here, beat the crap out of those stinky cats. Rise up. We'll appreciate you coming in and saying hello this morning. And Kevin, like you said, Fitzpatrick is that guy, and that he beat out Parker Hesse, who I believe was brought back. Yeah, Parker was brought back on the practice squad. He might be a flex option, Nick, that we were talking about, because he is one of those blocking fullback, H-back type roles who can do a lot of things, and he's a unit. He's big. So between Fitzpatrick and Hesse, that's what they're looking for. And again, I think we're picking nits. We're talking about, okay, that tells you the level of the offensive skill players that this team has right now. And we're talking about, okay, I think they'd like a better blocking tight end to go along with everybody else. Well, everybody else is pretty impressive, y'all.
Yeah.
Richard Miles has a fantasy football question. Says, good morning, guys. It's been a while. If Javonte Williams of the Broncos isn't 100%, will he be more to last a couple of games, or is that going to be worse injury this year? Javonte Williams, I think, is getting closer to 100%. I think he is a nice sleeper pick for fantasy football, and he will be starting. I bet he gets between 10 and 12 carries touches for the Broncos this weekend. From a fantasy point of view, I'd be real interested in Javonte Williams this year, especially if you're in a dynasty league and you get to keep him for next year.
Yeah. I think that they're going to spam the heck out of the running backs, and I think that Javonte Williams, they will lean into it. Again, I'm telling you before the show, but my I was in a fantasy draft with some of my wife's friends and whatnot yesterday, and she's picked 7. I was picking 9, and I was helping her. As it came, it's like, okay, who would you take here? Well, I could lie to her and maybe get the guy that I want, but I'll be honest. And she ends up with Bijan Robinson with her first pick there at 7. I would have killed to have him at 9. She ends up with Drake London in the, I think, 5th round, maybe. He felt like the 4th or 5th. I don't even remember, but it was a good pick for them. And then she gets Javonte Williams, I think, in the 7th. And her last pick was Tyler Algier to handcuff Bijan Robinson. I'm like, man, God.
She's screwed on a bye week.
Do they all play the same week?
Well, Algier, London, and Bijan play all the same week.
Yeah, you can find a dip week.
Yeah,
I'd rather just stack talent and worry about the bye weeks as they come.
See, I always went the opposite. I always picked Saints because I'm a curse. So yeah. I would pick the Saints actually were putting up numbers on offense. Corey says, can y'all do these shows later in the day? I want to participate, but I work. So do we. That's why we have to do them early in the day. We have other things going on. I work in sports media, so I could probably do it later in the day. But I have to have a workout buddy. If it's up to me, I'll be like, no, I don't feel like doing it. But knowing that Nick's going to be here, knowing that y'all are going to be here gets me going. We get a lot of views after the fact. We probably get 6-7x our views on demand. So if you do that, leave a comment. I'll participate afterwards. Leave a comment if you have any questions, anything you say that might need clarification, or if I messed up. I'm certainly not going to tell you I'm right. I'll admit when I was wrong. At least let me be wrong first.
Yeah, and I thought of my perfect inline Y guy who can do everything. right now in today's league. If I could copy paste one, Dallas Goedert. That is my dude. I absolutely love his inline ability and also the down the field ability. Great player.
And I take Travis Kelce and not worry about where I'm lining him up, and I'm getting 1,400 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm talking somebody who I can line up, obviously. Although
let's compare paychecks.
Yeah. No. You're right. But talking about for the Falcons team, because they already have Kyle Pitts, then Goddard would be unbelievable.
I'm not worried about, Kyle Pitts isn't a great blocker. Who cares? You know, he's not going to be. He is not going to be judged on his blocking at the end of the day. He's going to be judged on REC, receptions, and touchdowns. That's really it. Jasmine, good morning. Hope you were doing well. It was a gorgeous morning in the deep South. Another fellow Atlantan. There's plenty in here. This is a Falcons podcast, after all. Hope you are doing well this morning. Back to real quick, and Roderick has a question. He says, not to belabor the point, Scott, but play calling thoughts. He asked me a little bit on defense, and I didn't have an answer because, Ryan Nielsen hasn't called plays. So I don't know what to expect. What I do expect is better talent. And what the Saints have done historically is mix up pressure. So they're bringing pressure from different areas. So Cam Jordan's a beast, no doubt about that, but they didn't have anybody out there that was getting 15, 16 sacks. They had lots of guys getting 7 or 8. And I think that's what we can expect from the Falcons this year, at least you're hoping for, and start knocking on the door of 40 sacks this year when you've been in the teens. And I think it was 18 and 21 for 39 sacks the last 2 years. 40 sacks wouldn't have put you middle of the pack last year in one single season. That's how atrocious the pass rush has been. I know I beat this into the ground, but it's still just, it's so mind-boggling to me how bad this Falcons pass rush has been that it doesn't make sense. It's almost impossibly bad. You're going to get guys. There should be multiple guys with 5+ this year. There should be about 5 or 6 guys that have 5+ sacks this year. You might not have a single one get double digits.
Yeah, the one thing that I am curious about would be the opportunity for the sacks. Now, I think you are going to be playing with a lead a good bit, but given how the Falcons offense is set up, I think it's going to be a lot of possession and grinding it out with some explosives in there without a doubt, but I don't think it's going to be a high pace, Chip Kelly-esque, we're getting in as many plays as we can, which doesn't lend itself to as many pass rushing opportunities. So the denominator might be a little bit smaller, not like you guys are falling behind small, but smaller just because of the style of offense and games that you want to play, very complementary to protect the defense out there. And I think that lends itself to less obvious pass rushing, pin your ears back kind of situations. So I agree with you, though. You have nowhere to go but up. They've been absolutely terrible. And just by the law of averages, you should see a little bit of improvement there. The edge rushing group is still probably, just looking at the team on paper, probably has the lowest floor of the positions out there for them. Bud Dupree hasn't been healthy for a bit. We're still waiting on Arnold Ebiketie. Lord knows about Malone out there. Lorenzo Carter, never lived up to with that 9th overall pick. He's fine. He's kind of a hybrid player, but he's not, great by any means.
Yeah,
so
he's a good rotation,
you are limited in the. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but top 4, and that's going to be, I think it's going to be a rotation heavy defensive front there. So that edge rushing group is probably the one on paper. It looks like the weakest spot. And we talked about that a lot. I listened to a good bit of other NFL shows out there, and I have one of the, I think it was the Athletic Football Show. It was either that or one of the PFF ones that the Falcons were head over heels in love with Jared Verse last year. And if he had come out, you might not be talking about Bijan Robinson in Atlanta because they might have taken Verse because they need that edge rusher.
No, the 2 guys I'm looking at really, I guess 3 that if it wasn't going to be Bijan Robinson, who would I have taken in that spot at number 8? Philadelphia got Jalen Carter. Cornerback Christian Gonzalez was somebody that we were talking about a lot. And then Lucas Van Ness. I think those are the 3. I'm not going to hindsight grade, you could have had Micah Parsons at 4. Yeah, but nobody was taking Micah Parsons at 4. That's a hindsight grade. Jalen Carter, Christian Gonzalez, Lucas Van Ness were all pretty serious possibilities for the Falcons at number 8. I am keeping an eye on those. Justin Fields was a very serious possibility at 4 2 years ago. I am keeping an eye on him. And then my pick last year would have been Kyle Hamilton in the safety spot. But I think if Drake London continues looking like he has so far, including this preseason, your wide receiver is more valuable than your than your safety. My question there was, could I have traded down some because so many wide receivers were in that class? That was my argument against Drake London. It's like I could have gotten George Pickens in the second, Christian Watson in the second, Alec Pierce in the second, and maybe picked up another first-round draft pick. Mine wasn't necessarily against Drake London. It's just, was there enough separation from him and the other players to take him at number 8 overall when there were some other guys there?
Yeah, that's definitely a conversation. I think you're going to be, based on the flashes we've seen in the physicality and the youth of London, though, I think you're going to be pretty happy. It's going to be curious to see who ends up being the best wide receiver from that class, London or one of the two Ohio State guys. Garrett Wilson won the Offensive Rookie of the Year last year, but London's coming. I think it's going to be a good year for him.
Yeah, I think Garrett was in a much better passing situation last year, and London still played pretty well.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on Alec Pierce this year. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Keep an eye
they only have 3 wide receivers, right?
Yeah. Keep an eye on Alec Pierce this year up in Indianapolis. Keith's talking Cordero Patterson. He says, I've taken Cordero Patterson for 3 years on my fantasy football team. Does he have value this year? I think his value is going to be diminished this year because of the less opportunities. I don't think he'll get as many red zone opportunities is where it boils down to. If I'm first and goal from the 7, I don't have Cordero Patterson in at tailback nearly as much as I have in the past. I've got Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. I think he will be better for yardage. Kind of Julio Jones, the guy. Julio Jones was used as a running back between the 20s. They'd use him. He'd have 6 catches for 60 yards, and then he'd be on the sidelines in the red zone because he just got his ass beat getting the Falcons down into the red zone.
Yeah.
Cordero Patterson, I think, will be used more efficiently, but I don't expect him to have the same numbers overall that he did last year.
I think that a lot of the touches and opportunity that he was going to have, probably from a fantasy perspective, are zapped up by Bijan Robinson, as they should be. Bijan is a better talent and a younger guy, and you invested in him. So keeping an eye on Cordell Patterson, he's definitely one that you should, flag on your waiver wire just to keep, just to watch. And if Bijan goes down, if you have that waiver wire budget or anything like that, knock on wood on that one as well, Bijan going down. But then he has a massive jump in value. But for now, I think the number of touches is probably too low to value him, unless you're talking about a league where you're starting, 2 flex options in a 12 team league. But for now, probably upper waiver wire kind of guy.
Chris Walker has a good shout on defense here. I'm curious to see if third-year safety Richie Grant finally puts it all together this year. He's shown some flashes, but the consistency has been missing. I agree. He was a second-round pick, which was, that's a premium pick on a safety. You expect him to come in and be a plus player at that position. Mm-hmm. When they traded down, one of the guys that was right there in that spot was Javon Holland, and Javon Holland I think he made the Pro Bowl as a rookie. Not positive on that, but he was really highly graded by PFF. And Richie Grant was a rotational guy, special teams player. And then last year he was okay. You look at the safety spot and, you got Jesse Bates, huge upgrade, still just 26 years old, and Richie Grant at starters. But I'll tell you what makes me feel good about this, not necessarily Richie Grant, but it's Richie Grant and DeMarco Hellams. DeMarco Hellams is better than anybody that they've had at safety the last 2 years. Just briefly, from what I've seen, the upside, the nose for the ball, the range that he has, that if it's not Richie Grant, it's DeMarco Hellams. And DeMarco Hellams, who was a 6th round pick, maybe even a 7th round pick, late, final day pick, late pick, plays his way into that spot. Good for him. Good for him. And the Falcons, the competition and depth on defense, that's just a microcosm of what it looks like across the entire defense, that there's talent and depth that the Falcons just flat out haven't had the last 2 seasons.
Yep. I still think, just putting it on the long-term lens perspective, this is a team that should continue to throw resources at edge rusher and cornerback. But from where they have been for when we started this show 2 years ago, night and day difference. I mean, this should be a competent defense this year. If I was expecting where they are going to finish in terms of, EPA per play or points per possession, probably somewhere from, 12 to 20, where they're slightly above average to just slightly below average. But pair that with where the offense is going, which I think is probably going to be top 7, top 5, even when you have questions with Desmond, even if you're handcuffing him kind of, to the offense and making it a little bit simple. That is a team that's a playoff recipe. for this team this year. So should be very excited. Don't take it as an insult at all. That this is a team that's built through the offense. Defense just needs to be competent and complementary.
Terry has taken issue with my thoughts on Cordell Patterson. And let me see some of those numbers here real quick. Okay, 6-11. All right, here we go. I'm not going to show it just because there's profanity in it, and I don't want to put that on the screen, Terry. But he basically says that I'm out of my mind, that Cordell Patterson is the guy, and he's going to have more touchdowns than Bijan and Tyler. I disagree. He had 8 touchdowns last year. He had 11 the year before. I don't think he's going to hit those numbers this year. I think, again, I already said it. We'll see. If he has double-digit touchdowns, that's great. It would worry me if Cordell Patterson has more touchdowns than Bijan Robinson. I'll be a little worried about what happened to Bijan, honestly.
Again, it comes to the investment. I mean, you got to see where these teams put their money and their value. Cordell Patterson is already behind the 8 ball because he's been injured, and they're going to figure out touches for Bijan. I mean, Bijan's vision and whatnot, he is a super, Cordell Patterson, much better in the in a box and in tight spaces, honestly. So, I mean, again, Cordell Patterson, hell of a player, but I imagine a lot of those schemed targets in the red zone and touches that he's been getting are going to go to Bijan. You don't invest the 8th overall pick in a bleeping running back unless you're planning to use the absolute heck out of him in a lot of situations and him to be the engine of the offense. So it just all screams that Cordell Patterson, barring injury going on out here, is going to have somewhat of a diminished role compared to what we saw previously. Cordell Patterson's still amazing. He's going to get touches and pulling for him because I love the dude.
And Terry's saying it could be, I mentioned the Julio Jones reference, how he would always get the team down into the red zone. He's saying, fine, that's fine. And then when they're in the red zone, Cordell Patterson's going to be the guy down there. He's going to be the weapon in there. That could happen. Again, and frankly, I think that's a pretty good way to use him. The way he attacks the line of scrimmage, I don't want any indecision. He on short yardage situations or whatnot, he hits the line of scrimmage like his hair's on fire. And the only way to get it out is if he hits the line hard enough that it will go out. Not a bad way to go. Pig Low Country Sports. Oh, I coming in with a super. I want to give you a when he's on his show, he does like a dun dun dun. That's a super chat. I hope I was able to do you justice to that because I think it's awesome. I think you're awesome. Thank you for coming in here with a super chat. That means a lot, my friend.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to steal that. That's mine now. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you. Thanks for supporting the show, Big Country. Appreciate you. Just from the picture, you look like a fun guy. So hope you're having a good day.
That's awesome. So thank you, my friend. I appreciate the support of the show. Hope you are doing well this morning. You know what I want to do? I want to go through the schedule real quick because this is our last chance before the season starts to do a season prediction.
Mm-hmm. We'll have to go a little faster than
our
Broncos
fast. We'll go fast on this.
Do you want me to keep track of it again?
Yeah, you keep track of it again. Ryan Adon says, big news, Brian Burns could be holding out. Yeah, and Ryan, we hit on that early. Appreciate you being here. Just saying that he's been out. He might not be as effective as he's been, period. Even if he comes back, even if they're able to sign him in the next 3 days, it's going to be detrimental to their pass rush, and he's a big piece of it. So good callback on that one.
And one thing real quick, I know we want to get to the schedule, which we will, but I feel like we have to talk about this just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Did you read the article that came out 2 days ago now about the Eagles drafting Jalen Carter?
Jalen Carter. No, are all the skeletons starting to come out now?
Yeah. So there was stuff where obviously there's the racing stuff that happened, but also apparently there was a few fights between players, kind of unprovoked stuff where he punched like Quay Walker, and there was a chance for a lot of coaches and, scout people that are the trainers come up to talk to him, and nobody would come up to bat for him and talk positively about him. They pretty much had a call out saying like, hey, is anybody here? And nobody would come forward to say positive things about him and the coaching staff or whatever, kind of like ready for him to move on and get out of the program. So unbelievably talented, but there are concerns about the maturity and mental makeup there with Carter. And there's none of that with Bijan at all.
And the Falcons were not in a position where they could go high risk, high reward. No. The Eagles are. The Eagles are in a position where they could go high risk. If this guy busts, okay, we're still in pretty good shape. Falcons are not in that position. So, again, I was okay with it. We're talking, there wasn't anybody that you're going to take at 8. Like, I was much, much more verbally written against taking pass catchers the previous 2 years for reasons we're not going to get into today. But yeah, I think it was real easy to get into to justify the Bijan Robinson.
Yeah. And I just want
pick.
to
That
get
one was not hard.
The actual quote here, because I don't want to misquote here. So Tim McManus puts his name on an ESPN staff writer during the pre-draft process. He writes, multiple Georgia coaches declined to go to bat for Carter during the pre-draft process, according to sources familiar with conversations, in part because they had grown disenchanted with his practice habits and attitude. His behavior as a teammate came into question as well, notably after he struck then Georgia linebacker and later first-round pick Quay Walker in the face during a fall practice. Describes just by sources familiar with the pre-draft process as a knockout punch to Walker. So just a talented player, but some questions there.
It's organic. Comes in and says, I love how all the content creators for the Falcons support each other. We all really are a great fan base. Yeah, I wish I was able to go to the meet and greet that everybody had a couple weeks ago, but I ended up having to work that night. So I'm looking forward to doing it again. Let's run through this here real quick. Let me go one more Zoom just to. There we go. You keep track of them. Panthers at home.
I think so. Let me write that. Panthers here. I think the Falcons are going to win this one. I think we'll cover the spread too. With 3.5, give me the Panthers.
And it's an over-under of 40. You winning the Falcons. It's an over-under of 40. Rookie quarterback Desmond Ridder can't play. I like the over on this one just a little bit.
Yeah.
I could see a 27-21 type game. 27-17. That's still covering it.
Yeah.
So yes, Green Bay at home the next week, 9-17, week 2.
I'm going to go with the Falcons again, but Packers are one of the more interesting teams in football because we just do not know what we're going to get from Jordan Love. I mean, he could come in and be a world beater, right? We haven't seen too much in preseason yet. They got a heck of a lot of highly drafted players. I mean, talk about a difference in the investment in the edge room. That's just like first rounder after first rounder there in Green Bay and their defensive front. So this is an interesting one. I'm going to give the Falcons the nod though on this one.
Yeah, I'll go Falcons on this one too. The only difference right now between Jordan Love and Desmond Ridder is where they were drafted. And again, there's been a much more of an investment on offense for the Falcons, and the Packers have put it in defense and then tried to supplement with free agency. At Detroit, week 3.
I'm going to go with Detroit here. Maybe I'm falling into the trap of Detroit being media darlings right now for entering the season, but I think that this is a team that one of the few teams that might be able to actually out offensive line the Falcons this season. And I think that they have a upshot in the fact that it's at Detroit. I'm going to go with them in this one. And how about those Lions fans? Highest ticket price so far, $117 to get in to see the Lions.
In Detroit. Nice.
Yeah. Good for them.
Jacksonville in London.
What is
9:30 a.m. Oh, I'm with you on this. I'm going to pick Detroit too on the road. I'm big on the home team. Yeah. I think these are there's a lot of similar storylines with these Detroit Lions and Atlanta Falcons, but I'll go with the home team on this one.
Yeah. Next one is in London, Jacksonville. As you said here,
game.
I am all in on the Jags this year. I think that they're my dark horse Super Bowl contender, and Trevor Lawrence is my dark horse MVP winner. I'm going to go with the Jags in this one, mainly because I got to bake some L's in here somewhere because I know how easy the schedule is, and I'm not going to be out here predicting a 13-4 Falcons team this year. So I'm going to go with the Jags on this one.
I'll go with the Jags too. So I'll take Jacksonville also in London. That is a home game for them. Mm-hmm. It looks like I don't know if the Falcons are considered the home team or not, but it shouldn't be. That's the Jacksonville is there every year. That's kind of like they're trying to establish a Jacksonville base there or something. But Jacksonville plays a home game in London every year. We went there last year for the Broncos in Jacksonville. It was a Jacksonville home game, and it was Jaguar section over here, and this is your Jaguar support and cheer crowd over here. So not that really matters. I'm just trying to not pick all Falcons, but I like the Falcons' chances in this one for sure. And it wouldn't surprise me a bit, Nick, if they got a split between the Lions and the Jaguars.
Not at all. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they won both of them too. I mean, this is a Falcons team that I really believe in Arthur Smith, and they got a lot of fun weaponry here. So it's possible they're 4-0.
Eric Mack has the Falcons at 4-0 right now, unequivocally stating that the Lions cannot beat the Falcons, and we're both wrong because Jacksonville will lose. So impossible. Forget it. LOL, LMAO. You guys are out of your minds. What are you thinking? Oh my God, you're morons. How could you even think a team could possibly win this game other than the Atlanta Falcons?
I will say I think it's much more likely.
Everybody else thinks it's about a 60% chance that the Jaguars win. On the other one, it's 62% for the Detroit Lions. I know those are based on all of the other power rankings and stuff, blah, blah, blah. But wouldn't surprise me a bit to see a split in these games. I'll be surprised. I'll be real surprised that the Falcons are 4-0 coming out of here.
I think it's far more likely that you're talking about a Falcons team after the first 4 weeks coming out 3-1 than 1-3. I think that Green Bay, again, I don't know what to make of Green Bay right now at Jordan Love. Maybe losing Rodgers was a great thing for that team because he's kind of an oddball and likes to make it about Rodgers.
I think 2-2 after 4 weeks is realistic. You're going to be okay there because I'm going the next 3 games dub.
Me too. I do think that it's always kind of weird with the in-conference games, right? So I think like at Tampa could be a toss-up, but Tampa Bay I think is not going to be very good. Washington defense, that's another one, but I'm going to go with the dub as well at home. And Houston, a year away from being a year away. They have probably, I can't believe they gave up their first-round pick to Arizona. Will Anderson has to end up a Hall of Famer to be worth that.
He's looking pretty good so far, but you're right, because they probably could have gotten at least 3 first-round picks for that pick next year.
I mean, I don't get it, but it is what it is. So yeah, I'm gonna agree with you there. 3 wins in a row, that puts the Falcons here at 5-2, and so yeah, Texans, Commanders, and the Bucks. Sorry, I'm using 2 screens here.
Yeah, Texans, Commanders, Bucks. It's at Tampa Bay, but I do like all 3 of those. They should be favored really in all 3 of those games.
Yep.
At Tennessee again, road team, good team. I'll take the L there. Week 8 against the Titans.
I will as well. Yep.
Minnesota at home, Arizona at home, New Orleans at home. I'm sorry, Minnesota at home, Arizona on the road. Doesn't matter where you're playing the Cardinals. Bye week, Saints at home. Again, I'm going dub on those 3.
I'm going dub as well.
And then at 100%. Jets, I'll take the L there.
Same.
Again, it wouldn't surprise me if you can win some of those. And again, all these, nothing surprises me in the NFL. The only one of those that would surprise me is if you go out to Arizona and lose. That would surprise me because Arizona's all in on 0-17.
Yeah, I mean, there was the year that the Kansas City Chiefs had been 2013. I think the Packers were 11-0 or 12-0, and the Chiefs ended up getting the first overall pick that year. And the Packers go into Arrowhead and get stomped by the Chiefs. I mean, just things happen. It's the NFL.
It's the NFL. Crazy. Nothing's too surprising. You're probably going to win 2 that you expected to lose and win and vice versa.
Yep.
Jets, I'll take the L there. I think you're sweeping the Bucks, so you're coming home and beating Tampa Bay. At Carolina, am I bold enough to predict a Carolina sweep?
I'm going to go with an L on that one. I think it's going to be a split.
Yeah, I feel like too homerism to say a Carolina sweep on this one. So I'll take the L in Carolina. I think their teams come together a little bit more. It's been such a helter-skelter game between those 2 teams the last 2 years where Carolina just dominates one of the games and then looks awful in the next one. And I think they've been splits the last 2 years. So you're hoping for a little more consistency on the positive side with Frank Reich, but I'll take the split again. And then beat the Colts on Christmas Eve.
Yep. I'm with
at Chicago. Ask me again on Christmas Day. This one could be different. Is Chicago still in it? Are the Falcons still in it? I think these last 2 games are going to come down to, does anybody have anything to play for?
Mm-hmm.
If no, go with the home team. If yes, go with the team that has something to play for. But I'll go. You can win in Chicago on New Year's Day. Mm-hmm. I think the way this team is set up in the trenches, that they can win this game. And then again, depending on what the Saints are playing for, I'll take the L with the split in New Orleans. I bet that puts me somewhere around 11-6, 12-5.
You got them 11-6, as do I. I don't think we disagreed on a game. Did you pick the Panthers to split?
I picked the Panthers to split.
So we agreed on every matchup here. So it makes it really pretty easy. And that would have them 1 win, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11-6 there in that one. A few toss-up games here and there. The Packers won the toss-up early. Commanders, we don't know.
There's going to be a lot of toss-up games.
Yep. Saints, I mean, every single one of those division games is too as well. But I think that 10, 11 wins for how this Falcons team is set up right now is certainly feasible. And that's where we have them. So, Eric, I'm sorry that we didn't have them going 17-0 here, but 11-6, considering where this Falcons team has been, is not only a step in the right direction, it's a leap in the right direction.
What will be fun is if that Week 18 game with New Orleans decides the division.
Mm-hmm.
What would make it really fun if it was old school and it decided who goes to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Not just
it might decide who goes to the playoffs.
What?
It might.
It might. I know. That's what I mean. It might. Like, if you have to win the division to go to the playoffs, it might make that. It should be a lot more interesting. And I did have the Broncos. I came through game by game. I still feel like 10-7 for both is about right. Even though I picked each individual matchup. And again, this is going to change. My predictions are going to change at halftime of the Carolina Panthers game once we kind of get an idea of what's going on. Jacqueline coming in. She says, I don't usually chime in. Jacqueline, you get the floor when you bring super chats like you do. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to be at the Bears-Falcons game on New Year's Eve. That's cool. And they better win. I just know they're going to win. Dress warm. That one's outside in Chicago. Brr. Normally, if it was, the Chargers or the Dolphins going, I'd say that matters more. But this Falcons team is built to be a cold weather team. They want to get down and dirty with you in the trenches and beat you up. That plays in Chicago in December.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be an ugly football game, but you know what? You have the type of offense that can travel. We'll see how your front seven holds up, especially that time of year with the veterans that you have on that defensive line. Going to be should be a fun game. A lot of toss-ups here. I think for the future, if we actually really took a long draw on the schedule stuff, we should put in a confidence meter on some of the picks as well, because we're talking win-loss, but some of the ones are like in pencil versus sharp.
If we can weight them,
Yes.
I don't feel good about this one, but the one I feel the best about, honestly, Commanders at home.
You're fading the Commanders.
I don't like the Commanders at all. Maybe I should like them a little better than that. They've had a cultural change, but just the past decade, nobody in Washington wants to be in Washington. No. They want to be somewhere else playing for somebody that is less repulsive, and that's changing. I want to get back to Lawrence. Lawrence came in with some stars, and he's talking about coming in out of left field because welcome to the Falcons podcast, Lawrence. He says, I think Eric Bieniemy is going to be the coach that changes the Redskins. Look at his mark already taking place. I still think we missed an opportunity to grab him. And when he says he's talking about the Denver Broncos. So he's way out there, but that's okay, Lawrence. We love you for it anyway. We'll see. Bieniemy's already getting some static, about his personality and his man management there. And we'll see how it goes. And I just got done talking about not liking the Commanders. So we'll see how it goes. Appreciate the stars of Lawrence. Thank you for checking in this morning. On that note, we are just about ready to get out of here. What do you think, Nick?
I think that is going to be a fun Falcons team this season. Falcons fans have a right to be excited to see what they can do. The short-term questions are, is Arthur Smith going to be the head coach long-term? What is the bar to get at? Long-term question is Desmond Ridder the kind of guy that you're going to go back to the well for the next 2 seasons beyond this one and then go beyond that rookie quarterback contract? But right now, competent football has come into Atlanta and a very fun offense. Get on the Arthur Smith Falcons offense train. If you haven't entered fantasy draft yet, take those top guys. I think it's going to be a fun year for them. And it's going to revolve around the offensive line and Bijan Robinson.
A couple quick comments I wanted to get to. Chris Perone saw this was your first time joining us live. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for the support that you've had in the past. He says with all the money they spent, they better at least go 10-7. I think less than 10-7. 9-8 would be okay. 8-9. I think Arthur Smith gets one more year. Anything below that, you got a problem. You do. You have a problem.
I mean, I've been jaded.
10-7 should be realistic expectations. And if they don't go 10-7, I'm not going to be sitting here making excuses unless they're injuries.
That's
Like I have been the last 2 years with the salary cap and the complete and total mismanagement of the roster by Thomas Dimitrov. You won't be hearing that from me. We'll be talking about things got to get better. So won't be doing that this year. Jasmine asked, the Atlanta Falcons is a top blank offense in 2023. What do you think? How would you fill that in?
7. Top 7 offense.
7. Okay. I was thinking 12, which I think they can be. They were 15th in scoring last year. An extra field goal a game would have put them top 10. I think that's doable. So I think 10's realistic. And if they're top 10 in scoring, just get ready for the fact, all the people that have been talking just awfully, like he kicked their puppy or something about Desmond Ridder. If the Falcons succeed, the next narrative is going to be, look at the schedule. They don't play anybody. Oh, he's got all these weapons. He's still not worth a damn. Okay. I don't care. Go 11-6 and let them hate. To quote our friends over at Mile High Huddle, let them hate. Yeah, 11-6, and you're in pretty good shape. On that note, I think we're about ready to get out of here, Nick. Thanks, everybody, for coming in today. Lawrence, thank you for the stars. Jacqueline, thank you for the super sticker. And Big Low Country, love you, dude. Thanks for coming in with the super chat. We will be back on Friday morning. I will be back on Friday morning. Nick will be out of town. I'll be back on Friday morning. We'll go for about 30 minutes to maybe review some of the Chiefs and Lions. We'll talk some of the upcoming games, some of the big stories coming up. So check back in with us, same time, 9 a.m. Friday morning. After that, the next time you will see Nick and I together, we'll be discussing the Carolina Panthers at Atlanta Falcons game, and I can't wait. I hope y'all are excited too. Like we said, we've been waiting for this year, slogging through cap hell. It's here. 4 more days until Falcons football, y'all, where we can actually be excited. Hopefully it lasts longer than a week. On that note, everybody, thanks for being here. We'll see y'all later.